Welcome to the center of the universe and the home of the 18-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts. This is the X's and Argos podcast with Ben Grant and JB.
Welcome to the X's and Argos postgame reaction podcast, brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing, as the Saskatchewan Roughriders down the Toronto Argonauts 30-23. Ben Grant, joined as always by JB, and we will go through everything that happened in this game, what went wrong for the Argos, and how painful that plane ride back to Toronto is going to be for the boatmen. Before we get into this would be a great time for a Longboat Pale Ale. If you haven't been to Something in the Water yet, they've got a beer for all occasions, even a loss that probably shouldn't have been a loss. So get down to Something in the Water Brewing. They're in Liberty Village. If you're attending a practice at Lamport Stadium, it's just a short walk from Lamport. It's a short walk to BMO Field if you're going there pre-game. It's a perfect location no matter what. And they've got a beer dedicated to you, fans of the Double Blue Longboat Pale Ale, which I could use right now, JB. That was not a game the Argos should have lost, and yet there they were, trailing by 10 late. They end up losing by 7. But they're going to be so frustrated watching that game all week in film.
Yeah, that was that's a really disappointing game, and it boils down to Duke just not having a great game. And there were other guys that didn't play well, but you just can't overcome, as we discovered last year. You simply can't overcome your quarterback giving the other team the ball time after time after time. It just is not. You're just not going to win that game statistically, logically. Choose your adjective. So, there are things the Argos need to work on, but I thought they certainly went punch for punch with Saskatchewan, who are now probably Grey Cup favorites. So I'm not at the flamethrower stage yet, because I think there are still a lot of positives to take away, but that is a disappointing loss.
Yeah, it's very different from last week's loss. Last week, Montreal was just the better team. Montreal deserved to win. They were better. They played better. Everything about it was a Montreal win. This was very different. Toronto had no business losing this game. 5 turnovers to 0, and it comes down to a touchdown at the end. And it's just inexcusable. That was the one thing we said when we were previewing this game this week. You cannot give Saskatchewan free opportunities, free points. And we weren't even thinking about like pick sixes and stuff like that, but 5 turnovers to none. You just had to, as Toronto, you just had to not get in your own way. Just play Saskatchewan straight up. And in the long run, Toronto would have won this game. And 5 turnovers to nothing. You never win any game against anybody. You can't, you won't beat any team in the league if you turn over the ball 5 times and they don't turn it over at all. It's impossible to win that way. The fact that it was as close as this is a miracle.
I would guess that we are going to have a short intermission on the Duke's experience.
Yeah, let's talk about that in a little bit coming up. Let's just go through a couple stats first, because I think there's some important things to point out, and we can talk about some of the guys that had sneaky good games in there. There were a couple, but for the most part, it was a pretty rough night for Toronto. They just didn't get any momentum going offensively, but I actually thought the defense played pretty well. I thought Fraser Sopik had a really nice game from that Will linebacker spot. He got a lot of snaps. I wasn't really expecting that. They used him as a spy a little bit early on Patterson, and then he was just all over the field making plays. If you look at Saskatchewan's offensive numbers, there's nothing there, because they scored all their points either on defense or with a short field set up by a Toronto turnover. But if you just look at their offensive numbers and said pre-game, what's the score going to be? Yeah, I would have said, well, Toronto blew this one wide open. Shea Patterson, 192 yards passing. He was 15 of 23. He got on a bit of a tear. Nothing huge downfield, but he looked terrible in the first quarter. I thought he picked it up nicely after that. Not enough to win a game on his own, but certainly better than we saw him play against Hamilton. But yeah, 192, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. He protected the ball fairly well, put it in harm's way a couple times. There was an interception that maybe Benji Franklin could have had, but I think that one was tipped away at the last second. And then they completely bottled up the run. There was nothing there for AJ Ouellette, 67 yards on 18 carries, just over 3 yards a carry. That's not going to get it done. Shea Patterson with 4 carries for 18 yards. Frankie Hickson 1 carry for 6 yards. So yeah, those receiving stats, Saskatchewan's leading receiver, 54 yards on 3 catches. Emilus, and most of that came on that 34-yard touchdown reception. And that, if I can say, like, I think maybe 3 plays where the defense played poorly. One was on the Emilus touchdown reception where 3 different Argos missed a tackle. And then
that was really bad.
Those last 2 second downs where the Riders were in jeopardy of punting the ball back to the Argos, where there was nobody near the intended receiver at all, where Mitch Picton just got completely free somehow. Robbie Smith just missing a sack on Patterson. And then another one where I think it was a Kean Schaefer-Baker. I can't remember who was on the sideline, just wide open, nobody near him, where it looked like both Franklin and Pierce dropped back.
Yeah, the second one is a little harder because the receiver came from didn't follow the play, came from the opposite side.
That does make it tough.
To stand in the middle on that final pass, right? He didn't follow Patterson across the field and catch it across the stream, right? He was on the other side and he came back to the middle.
I love those play calls.
And I can see, like, on that scramble how he could get lost in the wash on that scramble. I'm not going to kill them too much on that scramble, but on the second down when he's standing on the sideline, I don't understand why he doesn't have tight man coverage there.
Well, someone had the wrong assignment.
You just can't let him catch the ball for a quick turnaround. Like, you're not trying to stop a field goal.
No one was close on that. Someone was supposed to be up because it looked like both Franklin and Pierce dropped way back, and one of them was supposed to stay up, and they just got their signals crossed.
I can't imagine that the play was to drop off in some kind of prevent defense. So that was disappointing, and the secondary tackling has been an issue this year that they will need to continue to. They'll need to continue to clean up. The secondary does not tackle as well as it used to, and you see that they definitely had some issues with Saskatchewan's screen game, which really tests your secondary's ability to tackle
and to shed blocks, which they had some issues with too. I think Saskatchewan's receivers blocked well.
That's what I mean. Like, you really get tested there as a secondary. Like, if you can't, You've got to be able to get off your block. You've got to be able to make those tackles. You can't, they ran basically that same screen like 9 times.
Yeah, that helped Patterson's completion percentage significantly.
Yeah, and like, honestly, the secondary just kept getting bullied.
And that's what Montreal did last week too, which is sort of a concern because it's been a theme now. But if the offense is clicking, that shouldn't matter. You can't run those all day if you're scoring points. But that's the problem. Those coincide with the 2 games.
Those didn't cost them the game today.
No,
I mean,
I think the defense, those are we opened talking about Toronto's defense. The defense was not the problem today. The defense played an excellent game. We're picking on the few times they didn't.
McManus was on a one-man mission to keep AJ Ouellette under control,
and he got beat early. AJ beat him on the, I think it was his first run of the game, and then McManus was like, that is not happening again.
No, he literally was just, he would not let AJ be the factor. And even with the defensive line injuries, they kept the run game in check. I mean, Duke's just killed them. There's no 2 ways about it.
And just before we switch over to the offense and start going through their many problems today, I do want to give credit to offensive coordinator Mark Mueller for Saskatchewan for calling passes in situations where no one ever calls a pass play. He's been really aggressive all season. He's done things like this, like, for example, in week 1 where he's throwing for the end zone on a similar situation. That was one of Sean Bain Jr.'s touchdown where everyone in the stadium thought it was going to be a run play or at most a pass to the sticks, and it's a deep bomb down the sideline. But now we're talking about with Shea Patterson, and he has him not just once but twice with the game on the line late, And the second time, rolling out, throwing back across his body. I'm sure Coach Mace was having a heart attack on the sideline as he sees Shea Patterson throw across his body, but a wide open Picton made that one of the plays of the game. So full credit to Mueller, because I think so many offensive coordinators would not have had the guts to call passes on both of those second downs. I wouldn't have. I would have called on that second one for sure. I would have called 100%. I would have called a running play. I might have called a pass on the first one, but yeah, there's no way I was calling a pass on that second one. And I give Mueller a lot of credit for that, because that takes a little bit of bravery. And just before we get off the Toronto defense, Jake Serezna going down with an injury was a huge problem. And I think that led directly to the MLS touchdown. So Serezna goes out with what looked like a shoulder injury. It seemed like he had some ice on his shoulder from the second quarter onwards. And why I say that led to the MLS touchdown, on that same series, you had Serezna go down, and then both Parrish and Williams ran into each other. Both were taken out. And so they were completely depleted in terms of the defensive line. And they had to send out a 3-man line, forcing them. And Winton McManus was also out at that time. I don't know what happened to Winton, but Cassara's on the field. They've got 3 down linemen. They had to blitz because there was no other way to get pressure with only 3 down linemen. So they sent 7, and that's what left the secondary exposed. The secondary still got to make tackles, but 3 different members of the defensive secondary miss a tackle. MLS scores. That's all set up from the combination of those 3 injuries on the defensive line. But, without Flo Remalade, I don't know if the Argos can afford to be without Jake Serezna as well. This could potentially turn into a problem where they find themselves short at one of their strongest positional groups. I guess if it's going to happen anywhere, I guess the defensive line's where you want it to happen, because they have so many guys, but it's not ideal at all.
No, I mean, you don't have CN Power anymore, and you've lost Knight on the practice squad, so the timing is not ideal.
No, it's terrible.
For interior guys, but hopefully it's not. Hopefully it's just a sprain and able to bounce back.
Yeah, you'd like to hope that with a week of treatment and a brace that he can be out there. But yeah, shoulders are tricky things, and those can stay with you all season long. So we'll have to see what his status is moving forward. All right, JB, let's get to the offensive side of the ball. Toronto puts up 17 points of offense. They mostly through field goals, 1 touchdown, which came late, Kadeem Carey, on what was a really nice drive by Cameron Dukes. I thought he had 2 very good drives in this game. One that ended in a field goal after Isaiah Cage was called for a holding penalty. Another that ended in that Kadeem Carey touchdown. But if you take those drives out, those 2 drives out, it was a pretty rough evening for Cameron Dukes. It wasn't all his fault. I think of the 4 interceptions, 3 of them hit DeMonte Coxie in the hands. They're hard to blame Coxie, but what do you put on Coxie when you look at 3 of those passes hitting a receiver in the hands? How much of that is Dukes? How much of that's Coxie? How much of that is situational?
Yeah, I don't know what was going on Coxie, and then Coxie, killed Arbuckle on that. He tried to cradle a pass instead of catching it. I don't know what was going on with him. The first interception he has to catch and he has to put away. He just didn't, and the DB stole it from him. So that's on him in my mind. The other one, which was an inside slant, which was kind of a high rocket ball. I can't kill Coxie on that. I think you can throw it high or you can throw it too fast, but you can't do both, which is what Dukes did. So I can't. I know it went through his hands, but I can't kill him on that kind of high fastball. That has to be a catchable ball. If he had made that catch, it would have been amazing. But using kind of the baseball error, lens, that's not a catch he should make. So that, to me, that's not a Coxie error. That is a Duke's error. So I would say 1 is Coxie's fault, but that's it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I think the Coxie does make that catch a lot. Like, we've seen Coxie make some ridiculous catches.
It'd be a terrific catch.
Yeah.
but you can't expect him to make that catch.
No, I agree, and I think that's the right way to look at it. And then the other interception from Dukes, I have no idea what was supposed to happen on that play, because whatever did happen was not what was drawn up. You had two receivers in the same area, and Dukes threw it to four different Roughriders. Like, there were four riders. There was one Argo who wasn't even facing the right way. Whatever was supposed to happen on that play did not happen. And unfortunately for Dukes, what he wouldn't have seen until he got to the sideline and looked at the tablet is he had, I think it was Tommy Neild, wide open, cutting across the field. So he had one receiver wide open, another receiver covered by four guys, another receiver in that same area too. And he picked the wrong place to throw it to. And that ended up with a big return as well. So this game could have been very different if not for 5 turnovers. Kadeem Carey's fumble. You don't like to see Kadeem Carey fumble. I don't love the way he carries the football, but that's not a knock on him. I don't think.
No, I mean he got hit. I mean,
he got hit so hard coming from a blind side too.
That's the problem with running against run blitzes. Is when you hit the line, the guy's already coming at you at top speed, and he got. I mean, that was just a clean smashing hit. I'm not gonna bang him on that. I thought he played pretty well. I thought the touchdown he scored was terrific. I thought that was hard grinding for him because they were run blitzing so much. What that is having a defender in every gap, so that there are no open gaps, which makes it very hard for you as a running back to pick a gap to get through.
They made an adjustment at the half for something that I actually thought would work really well. I was calling at the half for getting Dukes outside the pocket, like moving the pocket, because he just seemed to be under so much heat. But he threw 2 balls on the run that were both terrible decisions. One that ended up in an interception where he threw back across his body, and another that was almost intercepted where Sales actually jumped the route and kind of ran the comeback route for the receiver. That just may not be him throwing on a designed rollout may not be a strong suit for Dukes. I thought it would be, because he's so good in scramble situations, but doesn't seem to have that same ability when it comes to designed rollouts there, because that tendency to want to throw across your body or forecast where you're going with the ball.
I like the rollout. Like, for me, I really like levels if you're going to roll out, especially for not necessarily a super experienced quarterback. Like, he can look short and he can look long. But like, throwing on the run is really difficult. Your feet aren't set. You're not able to necessarily process exactly what you're seeing. And a lot of Toronto's receivers are not that hard to stick with. Like the scramble rules are, when the quarterback goes out of the pocket, then you go immediately to plaster, right? Everybody gets on a guy and goes wherever he goes. And that's a problem for Toronto, because Toronto's a fairly straightforward team to plaster.
They are a team that uses their bodies well to box out. They're physical receivers, Davaris and Kosi. Like, those guys will sort of screen the defender, but you're right, there's not a lot of separation, so you better be on the money with your throw.
Yeah, like the scramble kind of football you see, like from Pat Mahomes, to give an example, that kind of, like, people call it backyard football or whatever. Like, that tends to be where speed guys are able to kind of just get free. And the Argos are not built to be a backyard team. So I think that's where a bit of the clash comes in the rollout. Is the offense is not designed to be a rollout scramble offense.
There was another concerning thing I saw from Cam Dukes that I wonder if you noticed on the broadcast. I feel like a few of his throws, both last week and today, have come out high. It's not just that one we talked about that was high and behind to Coxie. There have been a few, especially those quick screens. There were one to Neild and one to Sindani where they had to go way up to get them. And not only did that throw off the timing of the screen, it's putting the ball in harm's way. And I'm wondering if he's having grip issues at all with having to bullet pass like that especially on a play where you don't have time to get the laces. A lot of those quick
Well,
screen
yeah,
passes, you just grip it and throw right away. You don't have time to, wear the laces that can throw downfield. Maybe that's just not something that is going to work for a quarterback like Cam Dukes.
like traditionally, like if you're like coaching up a kid in football and they're overthrowing, is generally speaking, not getting your foot planted and throwing the ball too hard. Right, those would be the two things you would immediately look to if you see a kid who's skying the football. Those are the two things, and I think some of it for sure is that he does. The clock in his head is definitely sped up. He has people coming for him on most downs because teams are now seeing that they can, if that they can bring heat and really throw him off. So I don't think he's really stepping into footballs the way he wants to, and I think he's putting extra heat on it, which is not helping because that's not his game. If he feels the ball needs extra heat, he should not throw that ball.
There were a couple of things that I thought Dukes did well, and I don't just want to pile on him. Remember, we're being really tough on him. He had a bad football game, but he's a first-year starter. He's very new, and this level is also a huge jump from where he came out of at school. And so expectation can't be that he'll be in there and just be playing like Vernon Adams and tossing the ball all over the field, making every correct read and playing Cody Fajardo style football where it's mistake free. He's going to make mistakes, and it's Coach Dinwiddie's job to make sure he puts him in a position where he minimizes those. But he had a bad game today. There's no question. There were some good things. I loved how he used his legs today. I thought that he did a really nice job, not only buying extra time in the pocket and being really slippery, but he ran a few occasions where that was what was there, where he kind of broke through. He either broke contain or stepped up through the pocket and saw it open up in front of him, and he took off. That my one thing actually came through this week in our pregame walkthrough. I said I wanted Dukes to scramble for 2 first downs, and I thought that would take enough pressure off him. He did more than that. He ran 6 times for 47 yards. Really, I thought managed the game pretty well, but it was the throwing that just wasn't on point. But yeah, I didn't foresee five turnovers. That maybe I would have made that my one thing. Don't turn over the ball 5 times.
I would have loved to have seen more low crossers, which I thought he really did a nice job of hitting guys on earlier in the season. And I don't know whether they were in there and they just didn't have the time to make the read to throw it, or because it certainly did feel like he was scrambling quite a bit, which is. I mean, we talked about it. It's like, it's like when you have, well, I've used the example, like when you have a bad power play in hockey. When you have a bad power play, it's almost impossible to improve it because everybody knows your power play is bad. So they play it so aggressively, so much more aggressively than they would ever try with a good power play, that you end up having to play a defense that the good power play never sees. And so it becomes this incredible cycle because you're not that good. And then the other team plays way more aggressively than they would ever try with the decent power play. So the decent power play never faces it. And I think that's what's happening here is, the line is doing the best they can, but you can't, you can't hold up against pump block for 60 minutes.
I felt like they did a pretty good job of, from my vantage point, I felt like they did a pretty good job of taking away the mid-level crossers. That's where Cameron Dukes really benefited from in those first 2 games where he's hitting those 10 to 15-yard crossers.
Yeah.
They were giving up drags. They weren't on the drag routes, but he hit a couple of those and they went nowhere. There wasn't any run after catch. But those second-level crossers weren't there. They were dropping backers into that underneath hole, and they would have been picks. And so he took a couple of times where he looked downfield and it's just that's not there. And the only one that I think he hit one to Tavares, and that was it. Maybe one to Coxie as well. But they did a good job. Saskatchewan did a really nice job of taking that away, and that's clearly what Dukes is most comfortable with. He loves those passes, and when those aren't there, he has to start looking around. But
yeah,
I mean, I don't know. I thought he used his legs well, but ideally, your quarterback running is not your only offensive output.
No, and I agree. I don't want to kill him either because I think he's doing a good job and he's won some games, but every game is another collection of film, and it's just going to become harder and harder because people are going to see what you're using to, you can only you can only trick people so long, and at a certain point, defenses are going to take away what you're running if you're kind of tricking your way down the field, and that's going to be a big challenge for the Argos. I do think at the very least, just to give Dukes a break, I do think you put Arbuckle out there, and at least there isn't recent film of his tendencies, and maybe you can maybe you can get away with a few things with Arbuckle that people don't have film on.
They just need to avoid turning the ball over. Like, really, that's it. That's
Yeah,
been.
but if they're not turning the ball over, I mean, he's throwing interceptions. I mean, I think we should characterize. I mean, they only had one fumble, and then there were 4 interceptions.
Yeah, but he has to not throw interceptions. Like, that's.
No, I know. Well, I know, but I'm just saying those interceptions are, I think are a result of teams knowing what he wants to do, and he just doesn't have as big a menu of things he can do as you would hope.
The problem with the next game in Montreal is that against Saskatchewan, he didn't need to try and win the game. Like, he could have, on all of those interceptions, if those had been 2 and outs, Toronto would have won the game. There's no question about that. But he needs to avoid the turnover, avoid the big costly mistake. Against Montreal, you can't win if you're just, logging 2 and outs. Like, Dukes has to push the ball downfield against Montreal. He has to score points offensively because they won't win that game if he doesn't. And so let's talk about it. Is it a better play to make a change at quarterback? I hate having these conversations, but I think it's a very real question, and it's going to be asked a lot this week. Coach Dinwiddie's going to be asked about this. I know I'm going to be asked about this on every show that I go on this week. Is there going to be a switch at quarterback? So I'll ask you that. Is there going to be a switch at quarterback? Would you make a switch at quarterback?
I would make a switch at quarterback. I think that, look, Dukes is the backup quarterback. That in week 10 he's not going to be the starter. So I think that you're doing the best with who you have at the backup here. But if you have 2 games where things didn't go that well, that's why you signed Arbuckle. I think you signed him for exactly this. If the waters got really rough, maybe we can bring a vet in here who can go for 2 turnovers and 250 and 2 touchdowns, and we can steal a game. And I think on the road in Montreal is exactly why you signed Arbuckle. I mean, if that's not why you signed Arbuckle, I don't know why you would have him on the team, to be honest. I think you do make a change to let Dukes catch his breath. I don't think you have to worry about his confidence. I mean, he's a young guy and he's a young starter, and he had a game that he wasn't very good in, and they're going to go a different direction. That would be my move to roll Arbuckle in and see how that goes, and then potentially come back to Dukes, win or loss.
I would go a different way on this. I would actually stick with Dukes for Montreal because I think this is a test that you need to see, and if it continues to go south, then I think the next game.
But why? The test you need to see for what? He's literally only has 5 more weeks of playing left, or 6.
The reason that I do it is because I think seeing how not only how he responds from this, but seeing how he plays Montreal a second time. I think that's a really important thing to gauge. So he's got a game of film against Montreal.
You see that as an advantage for him?
I see it as a good test for him. I think that
I
you
like,
have to, because there's correctable mistakes. Like in that Montreal game, there were opportunities that he missed. There was a touchdown that he didn't
yeah.
see, and he took the check down instead. There were moments where he could have run for first downs where he didn't and tried to make an ill-advised pass. And then in this game, there are a ton of mistakes that he made that he can look back on and correct. I think there's so much, there's an opportunity for learning without question here. And Montreal, yeah, they're pulling away right now. It's a very long season. There's a ton of time left. Who knows what's going to happen down the road? I'm really not that worried about Ottawa. I'm not that worried about Hamilton in the East. If I'm Coach Dinwiddie,
I,
I think you need to see. I think if you give up on Dukes now, I think you're doing him a disservice, and I think you're potentially doing the team a disservice. I think we know
I'm
what.
not giving up on him. I'm like I said, I could very easily bring Dukes back for Hamilton, win or loss against Montreal. But I just think you have to say to the team, look, this is not acceptable. We cannot have a player throw 4 interceptions. Everybody on this team is playing in a meritocracy, and if the field goal kicker misses 6 field goals in a game, we have another field goal kicker. I just think from the team perspective, you got to give Arbuckle a chance to kind of settle the ship. I mean, I don't want to go to Arbuckle in the Hamilton game. I think I mean, suppose Duke throws an interception in the first quarter, then you pull him.
Well, I need to see what happened. Like, why was there an interception? If
Yeah,
it's it was like
I don't
one
even
that you
want to get
saw
into those
again today.
games. I would just take him out, let him rest, have a breather, watch some film. Hey, it's okay, man. You're doing the best you can. We're gonna try this other guy this game. I think it takes the pressure off Dukes. I don't think you treat him like a starter. He's not a starter. He is the guy who's filling in. So I think it makes it easier for the organization to give him a week off.
I think there's a danger that if you pull him now, that you may never get him back. And I think that
What?
a
No.
good it happens. Like it's confidence is such a big thing here, and opportunities don't come up all the time either. The opportunity to play as a starting quarterback doesn't happen if you're Cameron Dukes all the time. And he's got this opportunity. He had confidence. He lost it last week, and he clearly didn't have
Well,
it going for him today.
do you think going into Montreal and playing Montreal there is the venue for getting that confidence back?
I think it's a really good test to
Oh
see
my
what
God.
he's
I don't
got.
think this is a guy who needs a really good test.
I
I
don't.
think
I
this is
think
a
he'll
guy who needs a
respond
really good
well.
rest.
I honestly think he'll respond well to that because I think he's going to see like he's already seen on film what he missed against Montreal. I think he'd relish having another opportunity against that defense, and they are I think the best defense in the league. Saskatchewan's defense, though, I got to say they're right there as well. Their defense is really solid. But yeah, Saskatchewan and Montreal, I don't think you can face two tougher defenses in back-to-back
No, I
weeks.
don't look, and I'm not, I think I'm being pretty like non-judgmental here. I'm saying, oh, Duke should never play again. And I would just say, okay, Dukes, well, why don't you sit this one out and we'll see and we'll see what Arbuckle can do here because it looks like the water is getting a little deep.
It does, but I still think you send him out there and see what you've got and see how he
Oof.
responds.
Well, look, I love it. It's like that's very Marine Corps of you, and I salute that.
I don't like giving up on the starter whoever the starter is. I
Well,
think it's too
I'm
early.
not giving up on him.
Well,
I'm
pulling
just
him and sitting him on the bench is giving up on him.
no, it's not. Any more than I've given up on my guy Johnson.
Yeah, and I haven't
Just
given up on Johnson, but that's a different position. Quarterback's not the same as corner. Like Johnson made some
sometimes
mistakes, he got pulled.
sometimes guys need to take a break.
Yeah, quarterback's different though. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, I sometimes I agree. I agree when you have a starter, but you don't have a starter here. You have backups who are trying to kind of keep the team at 500. I just think the pressure is different. I don't think you look at Dukes as a starter. He's not a starter. He's a backup quarterback, and we're trying to get to 500, and it's not really working right now. So let's try Arbuckle, and if that doesn't work, then back to Dukes.
We'll have to see what Coach Dinwiddie does throughout the week, and he's gonna be
He'll be very happy to talk about this.
He will not be at all happy to talk to any of us about what's happening this week at the quarterback
Well, I wonder
position.
how that after game presser went.
Yeah, it's not a press conference that you look forward to either as a coach or as a member of the media.
No,
it's awkward. It's horrible. You hate talking to a coach in that scenario.
It sometimes sounds like I'm being a bit glib about it, but look, it's professional sport, and this is the stage and the path that people have chosen, and it's a show me league. So and at a certain point, if a linebacker kept getting knocked over, you'd take the linebacker out, and I think that's where we're at.
Let's end on a positive note, and there was a positive, which was the kick return touchdown for Janarian Grant.
What made me so angry was we were at practice, and I remember sitting at practice and thinking, man, he looks great. Like just, like that term easy gas they use for arms and pitchers sometimes. Just easy gas. And I should have made a comment about it, and I should have picked him as my one thing, because he looked fantastic on the practice field. He just looked fast and fluid and ready, and just no one will ever believe that that's what I was thinking. But anyways.
Unlike you, Mike Hogan and I put that on tape in our pregame show today. We were talking about how Janarian Grant is specialist on that field. He scored one of his touchdown run or punt return against Saskatchewan last year is one of the greatest plays I have ever seen in the CFL, where he broke 9 different tackles. And of course, that was the site of the Grey Cup, where the Argos beat the Bombers. But remember, Janarian Grant had a punt return touchdown in that one too. He's a great returner, and there's something special about that field. We were saying he could be a real difference maker and potentially score another touchdown on that field. And didn't that open the scoring where he goes all the way? And I said we'd end on a positive and how great he played. But there's one more thing that I want to talk about before we sign off here.
Is it about the tight end getting penalties?
No, although Ouellette had two really unfortunate penalties. One that wiped out a 2-point conversion, another that wiped out a first down. They were penalties that probably needed to happen, otherwise those plays weren't going anywhere. Well, the first one anyway. The second one, I think Grant would have gone either way. But that was tough. And I've been singing Ouellette's praises. He's had a couple really good games. I love when they run behind him. But a hold and a face mask. Those both crushed the Argos. I wanted to ask what you thought about going for 2. Coach Dinwiddie opens with that 2-point conversion attempt.
Yeah, I did not. I mean, I don't hate it. I didn't understand it. I didn't, and to be honest, I didn't realize that you couldn't switch back to 1 after a penalty.
Yeah, we were talking about that in the broadcast too. Yeah, you can't, once you've declared that you're going for 2, if you get a penalty, you can't just be like, no, we'll kick.
Oh, well, you should be able to.
Well, that's the rule.
Well, I didn't know that rule. I thought that was a weird play on a road touchdown. I don't know what he might, obviously he felt very confident in a 2-point play they had. I thought that was I mean, I would say no if I were asked my opinion, should they have gone for 2 there? I don't know why you would, unless you're just going to go for 2 all the time.
That's the thing. I'm never on the same page with Coach Dinwiddie on 2-point conversions, because even the 2-point conversion they got at the end, I wouldn't have gone for 2 there, because I don't want to go for 2 until it's the last time I believe I'm scoring. And in now that turned out to be the last time they were scored. But you're planning on winning the game. You're planning on tying up the game, whatever it is. So especially in the CFL where you can score singles and points can come from a lot of different places. But opening with it, I actually don't mind it. But again, I think that has to be part of your personality. Coach Dinwiddie's a pretty conservative coach generally. And so it just struck me as odd. But I felt like, yeah, he must have had a play he really liked. And initially it looked great until you saw the replay and it was like the biggest hold ever.
It felt like he needed a timeout just like Coach Mace did when he almost went for it on third down.
Right. Well,
and here are these two coaches and they're going head to head. And like, I got something for you, Mace, and I got something for you, Dinwiddie. And then Coach Mace, of course, realized I can't go for this. What are we doing? And then he went with the field goal team.
Well, I don't think he was ever considering it. See, what I think was happening is I think he wanted them to try and draw Toronto offside. It was 3rd and 3. I think Mace was saying, send a play, try and draw them. But
when was the last time somebody actually got drew offside? Like 1972?
I know, but teams do it all the time. And then the problem is they didn't break the huddle till there were 7 seconds left on the play clock. And he's like, okay, well, this is too late now. It's timeout. But I don't think they were going to go.
I think he thought about going for it. I think he did. I think he thought about like dagger. Just AJ Ouellette touchdown, light the stadium on fire, flamethrower. I think it would have been quite a moment if they had really dropped the hammer there. I think that I don't know, the appeal of that play, I think, appealed to him as a defensive coach.
I don't think that was it, but
I think your offensive coach mind maybe thought it was not possible, but his defensive coach mind thought about it. That, in my opinion, he thought about it and then came to his senses.
It's a no-brainer. You go up 2 scores.
I know. I understand. I'm just telling you, AJ Ouellette, smashes into the end zone, fireworks go off, take that, Toronto, get on your plane. Everything about it was adrenaline-filled madness.
I don't know.
I was excited for it, and then I'm sure somebody in his headset was screaming, and he came to his senses. But I didn't know. I didn't understand going for 2 there, and coach and the challenges. But we don't need to go there tonight. But not a great challenge, Coach.
That challenge, I didn't think it was great either, except that at that stage in the game, you had to call a timeout before the 3-minute warning anyway, because you can't say both till after it. Shot. So
my guess is somebody up top thought it you have to make the decision really quickly.
Right.
And if you look at it quickly, it looked like a mask.
Well, I thought they were looking for a horse collar because he missed the mask. You could see, like initially when the play ran, I thought
they were looking mask. I thought it would look closer to a mask.
It looked like it on the initial play, but on the replay, he clearly didn't touch the mask. But it looked like he grabbed the nameplate. But then when they slowed it down, you can see he actually grabbed the numbers on top of the shoulder, not the nameplate.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see I wonder what he thought. I mean, it didn't matter.
No, that was not
like you said.
difference.
I think at the time, it was worth a shot, but if I were going to pile on one more log onto the,
so
I mean, look, they lost, so I don't think we, it's not an emergency, but I think people have to take their, we hand out lots of flowers. I think it's appropriate that we have to be a bit honest when they're not winning. And now they've got 2 more tough road games. We're really going to see, this is an interesting challenge that coach has not had to deal with in his time here yet.
And they are coming off, or at least playing a full week. So they've got, instead of the 6 days before a game, they've got the full week before a game. It's next Thursday, July 11th in Montreal. And unlike this game where they're playing a team coming off a bye, Montreal is actually going to have 2 fewer days rest than the Argos, which I think is a big key because in the Montreal game in Toronto, Montreal had 2 extra days to prepare for that one. And that could have been one of the differences in the game. So this is it. Toronto's got a favorable situation. They got a full week. Montreal's going to be playing on a short week. And Toronto knows what they've got in Montreal. They've got extra film to study. They can already get to work on this stuff. And so they'll be in a good position, but yeah, the question will be who will be at the helm for the double blue. Well, that will just about do it for us on this post-game reaction episode of the X's and Argos podcast. The Argos lose 30-23 to the Saskatchewan Roughriders. For JB, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see ya.
Go Toronto Argos, go, go, go. Pull together, fight the foe.